Leo, this is your final payment. Eleanor Shaw's assistant, Caroline, slid a thin check across the polished surface of the conference table. I glanced at the numbers. Damn, 20% more than what was stipulated in the contract. Miss Shaw must be in a good mood. Of course she was. The original was coming back, and she was in a hurry to get rid of the copy. Tell Miss Shaw I appreciate it, I said, smoothly tucking the check into the inner pocket of my suit jacket. I flashed a practice smile. The final settlement was prompt. It's been a pleasure doing business. Caroline's expression was a little strange. Miss Shaw said, "You can stop by our office now. There are some personal items to hand over." I checked my watch. A little after 3 in the afternoon. Wasn't she supposed to be on overseas video conference call right now? It seemed the news of Julian Hayes' return was enough to make even a workaholic like her break character. Of course, I'm on my way. On the private elevator ride up to the penthouse office, I adjusted my tie in the mirrored wall. I made a point of wearing the navy blue suit Eleanor liked most, along with a spritz of the woody cologne she favored. If this was my last performance as the perfect stand-in, I might as well nail the finale. Come. Eleanor's characteristically cool voice came from within. I pushed the door open to see her standing with her back to me, looking out the floor-to-ceiling window. The afternoon sun bathed her in a golden light, making her look regal and untouchable, if you ignored the way she was subtly tapping her toe on the marble floor. Ms. Shaw. I stopped 2 yards from her desk, the prescribed safe distance. Caroline said you wanted to see me? Eleanor turned around. Her makeup was more meticulous than usual, her lips a vintage red, her hair pulled back in a flawless chignon. Sit, she said, gesturing to the sofa in the guest area. Oh, a deviation from a script? I sat down without hesitation, letting my legs fall open naturally, my elbows resting on my knees. It was Julian Hayes' signature posture. Even if I was on my way out, I had to stay in character until the curtain call. Eleanor's gaze lingered on me for a moment before she walked over and sat on the opposing couch. A manila folder sat on the coffee table between us. Julian's flight lands tomorrow at 3 p.m., she stated, getting straight to the point. I know. Caroline told me. I nodded. Congratulations, Miss Shaw. The leading man is finally back. That's why our contract is ending early, she explained, as if I needed a reason. I get it. Totally understandable. I smiled and pulled the keys to the high-end downtown condo from my pocket, placing them gently on the table. As agreed, I've cleared out all my personal belongings. The clothes, watches, and electronics you gave me are all in the walk-in closet. Here are the keys. My breezy, professional detachment seemed to catch her off guard. She stared at me for a long moment. Is there anything you want to say? She asked suddenly. As she spoke, her fingers began to tap restlessly on her knee. From my 3 years of studying her, I knew this was a nervous tic. But why would she be nervous? Was it just excitement about Julian's return? Or was something else? Whatever. Not my problem anymore. I was done today. Why get invested? I gave a moment of thought. Thank you for the opportunity these past 3 years, Miss Shaw. The work was easy and the pay was excellent. It was the smoothest gig I've ever had. Her mouth twitched. She picked up the manila folder and handed it to me. This is the written confirmation of the contract's termination. And I prepared a letter of recommendation for you. A recommendation letter? I took the folder but didn't open it. What kind of recommendation? If you need to find your next job. Eleanor's voice was a bit tight. With your professional skills, it should be easy. I raised an eyebrow, almost laughing out loud. Miss Shaw, have you forgotten? This line of work runs on word of mouth, not letters of recommendation. But if you wanted a legitimate job, I appreciate the thought, Miss Shaw, but it's not necessary. I interrupted with a smile. I've already got a few potential clients lining up. They're practically taking a number. That was, of course, a complete lie. Her expression instantly turned to ice. Chapter 3. Temptation? Rejected. She suddenly stood and walked to her desk, retrieving a small, velvet-covered box from a drawer. Keep this, she said, pushing the box toward me. As a memento. I opened it. Holy hell. Inside was a Patek Philippe watch, worth at least 7 figures. I remembered this piece. She'd bought it for $3 million at an auction we attended last month, saying it was for someone important. This is too much, I said, closing the lid and pushing it back. The contract is clear. Gifts received during the employment period are considered props, to be returned upon termination. Eleanor's lips thinned. This isn't a prop. It's for me, personally. Ms. Shaw. I cut her off firmly. We both know who I've been playing for the last 3 years. This watch. The person you really want to give this to is Julian Hayes, not me. The office fell silent. Eleanor's face went pale. She spun around and stalked back to the window, taking a deep breath with her back to me. You can go now, she said, her voice regaining its usual hardened edge. Caroline will handle the rest. Very well, Ms. Shaw. I stood, giving the hem of my suit jacket a final tug. I wish you and Mr. Hayes all the best. A perfect exit. 10 out of 10. Chapter 4. The next gig, walking out of the Shaw Tower, the early summer sun felt good. I stood on the steps, took a deep breath, and savored my first taste of freedom in 3 years. I pulled out my phone and sent a text to my agent, Frank. Shaw contract terminated. Final payment received. Let me know when you got a new gig. After sending it, I glanced back at the soaring steel and glass skyscraper. 3 years of playing someone else, 24/7. Now, finally, I could just be Leo Vance again. My phone buzzed. It was Frank. So, what did you get for a severance package? Frank's voice was laced with his usual cynicism. Standard payout. I didn't ask for more, I said, heading for the subway station. But she was generous. Threw in a 20% bonus. Tisk TSK. You're too damn honest for your own good, Frank grumbled. Listen, I've got a big one for you. The CEO of Rossi Global is looking for a long-term companion stand-in. The pay is 50% higher than what Shaw was giving you. Interested? Send me the file. I said, my interest peaked. Any special requirements? That's the weird part, Frank said, his voice dropping. The client specifically requested you, and she doesn't want you to imitate anyone. She wants you to be yourself. I stopped in my tracks. Be myself. Yeah, said she likes your type, Frank chuckled. Tomorrow, 10 a.m. The Peninsula Cafe. Don't be late. After hanging up, I stood at the subway entrance, lost in thought. Be myself. I nearly laughed out loud. After 3 years as a professional stand-in, someone was finally hiring me to play the part of Leo Vance. Just as I was about to swipe my card to enter the station, I heard the rapid click-clack of high heels behind me. I turned to see Caroline jogging toward me, holding that familiar velvet box. Leo, she called, breathless, cutting me off. Miss Shaw insists you take this. I sighed, took the box, opened it, and fastened the expensive watch to my wrist. I then handed the empty box back to Caroline. There. Is that better? Tell Miss Shaw I'll take good care of it. If she ever wants it back, she knows how to reach me. Caroline looked like she wanted to say more, but just nodded and turned away. I looked down at the heavy timepiece on my wrist and noticed something I hadn't before. The back of the case was engraved with 2 sets of initials, J, Ush, and E, S, Julian Hayes and Eleanor Shaw. How ironic. A $3 million joke sitting on my wrist. I unclasped it and shoved the priceless watch into my pocket. As a train roared into the station, my phone buzzed with another notification. It was a text from Eleanor. You can stay at the condo until the end of the month. No rush to move out. I chuckled, didn't reply, and walked onto the platform. For the first time in 3 years, I didn't have to play a part. I didn't have to calculate whether every expression, every gesture, fit the Julian Hayes persona. Stand-in rule number 1. Never catch real feelings for the client. I was glad I'd always been good at following the rules. Chapter 5. An unscheduled visit freedom tasted like instant ramen with a hot dog sliced into it. I was sprawled on the couch in my own small apartment, legs crossed at the ankle, happily slurping noodles while scrolling through my phone. 3 years. 3 years without having to wake up early to make a gourmet breakfast, without wearing perfectly pressed shirts, and most importantly, without having to maintain that elegantly mature smile for Eleanor. Now I could wear baggy shorts, sport a messy head of hair, and add an extra hot dog to my spicy beef ramen. Perfect. I mumbled around a mouthful of soft-boiled egg. My phone buzzed. It was a message from Frank. File on Ms. Rossi sent. 10 a.m. tomorrow. Don't be late. She's a major client. I opened the file and scanned it. Isabella Rossi, 28, CEO of Rossi Global. A rising star in the business world, with a net worth conservatively estimated at 3 times Eleanor's. Damn, a real titan. I whistled, scrolling down. Requirements. Be yourself. No imitation of any other person is required. Accompanied to social functions as a stable, long-term boyfriend. Contract term, 6 months. Compensation, 1. 5x market rate. Weird. She really doesn't want me to play a character? I rubbed my chin. Does this Ms. Rossi just have a thing for my type? As I was pondering this, my doorbell rang. Who is it? I shuffled over to the door in my flip-flops. And then I froze. Eleanor Shaw was standing in my hallway. An ex-client showing up on your doorstep. Awkward. She wasn't in her usual power suit, but a light-colored trench coat, her hair down and looking softer than usual. But she looked tired, with faint dark circles under her eyes. Ms. Shaw, I raised an eyebrow. How did you know where I live? She pressed her lips together. Your address is in your HR file at the company. Right. I nodded, not moving to let her in. Is there something I can help you with? Her eyes darted past my shoulder, taking in the ramen bowl on my coffee table and the general clutter of my living room. Her brow furrowed almost imperceptibly. You eat that? Yup. Spicy beef flavor, extra egg, extra hot dog. The height of luxury. I grinned. Want a bowl? Her mouth twitched. She was clearly not a fan of my culinary choices. The silence stretched on. Aren't you going to invite me in? She finally asked. I shrugged, stepping aside. It's small. Don't judge. Eleanor stepped inside, her gaze sweeping over my bookshelf, my gaming console, and the sci-fi movie posters on the wall. Her expression was strange. I didn't know you liked this stuff. Yeah, well, I had to stick to Julian's preferences before. Had to keep it all under wraps, I said, gesturing to the bookshelf with a grin. Finally get to put my own things out. She didn't reply, just walked to the sofa and hesitated before sitting, as if afraid she might catch something. I handed her a glass of water. So, to what do I owe the honor, Ms. Shaw? She clutched the glass, her knuckles white. After a few seconds, she spoke. Julian, he isn't what I remembered. Oh, I raised an eyebrow. How so? Not handsome enough? Not gentle enough? Or, he's selfish and arrogant. He uses our past as leverage, she said, her voice low. He doesn't even remember how I take my coffee. I almost laughed. Of course he didn't. For the last 3 years, the person who remembered her preferences every single day was me. But I held it in, merely nodding. People change. Eleanor looked up at me, her eyes filled with a complex emotion. If it were you, what would you have done? I tilted my head, adopting my old stand-in persona. MS. Shaw, your iced Americano, no sugar, double shot. And then I'd ask what you wanted for lunch. Her expression froze for a second. Yes, you were always perfect, almost inhumanly so. Naturally, professional stand-in, 5-star service, I grinned. But the contract's over now. You can always train Julian to remember these things. Her face fell even further. Eleanor suddenly put down her glass and looked me straight in the eye. I'll double your salary. Come back. I blinked. Come again. Don't misunderstand, she added quickly. Not as a stand-in. I was impressed with your work. I want to hire you as my special assistant. Legitimate employment relationship. I nearly choked on my own spit. Miss Shaw, are you serious? I never joke about business, she said firmly. I laughed. And what about Julian? You think he'd be happy with your ex-stand-in hanging around the office every day? Don't mention him. Her voice rose sharply before she lowered it again. We fought 3 times this week. He's nothing like the person I built up in my head. Well, looks like the halo around her long-lost love was starting to tarnish. I shrugged. Sorry, Miss Shaw. I'm already in talks for a new job. Her expression visibly darkened. Ooh, trade secret, I said with a cheerful smile. Eleanor stared at me for a few seconds, then let out a cold laugh. Another stand-in job? Yep, a job's a job. Nothing to be ashamed of. You enjoy being someone else's shadow that much? She asked, her tone laced with contempt. I smiled. You've got it wrong, Miss Shaw. Being a stand-in is just a job. But I've only ever been my own man. She was speechless. Finally, she stood, grabbed her purse, and walked to the door. Before leaving, she glanced back. Think about my offer. It's always on the table. I waved. Take care, Miss Shaw. After the door closed, I let out a long breath and fell back onto the couch to finish my ramen. My phone buzzed again, another text from Eleanor. I hope you'll reconsider. You can keep living at the condo. There's no hurry. The second time she'd sent that. Was she trying to keep me as a sugar baby? Not my style. I ignored it, swiping the notification away. Time to meet the new boss tomorrow, I said, stretching contentedly. Stand-in rule number 2. When the client tries to get you back, it's just talk. Don't take it seriously. Chapter 6. New client, new contract, the Peninsula Cafe, VIP room. I arrived 10 minutes early and chose a seat by the window, adjusting the collar of my shirt. No suit today. I'd opted for a casual button-down and black slacks. Professional, but not stuffy. First impressions matter, especially with a CEO. At 10 o'clock sharp, the door opened. A woman in a beige trench coat walked in. I looked up and froze. Isabella Rossi was even more beautiful than her photo. She had wavy, chestnut brown hair, flawless skin, and a pair of amber eyes that held a hint of a smile. She radiated an aura of elegance and reserve. "Mr. Vance?" she asked, stopping in front of me. Her voice was softer than I'd expected. "Ms. Rossi." I stood and offered my hand. She shook it lightly. Her fingers were cool, her touch delicate. "Please sit." She took the seat across from me, her movements efficient and direct. No time for small talk. I like that. After the waiter brought our coffee, Isabella produced a file from her bag and pushed it toward me. "I need a partner-style assistant to accompany me to social events. The term is 6 months," she said, all business. "The specific requirements are in here. Take a look." I opened the file, scanned the first page, and froze. Contract requirements. No imitation required. Be yourself. Enjoy sci-fi films? We could have a weekly movie night. Wednesday nights at the boxing gym? Not a problem. I can even join you as a sparring partner. Dislikes carrots? My chef will ensure they never appear on the menu. Holds a motorcycle license? We can go for a ride in the country on weekends. I looked up, my eyes narrowed. "Ms. Rossi, have you been investigating me?" "What do you mean?" These requirements read like a list of my personal habits. A small smile played on her lips. Of course, one must do their due diligence before hiring someone. "But this is incredibly detailed," I said, pointing to one line. "You even know I like my ramen with a sunny side-up egg?" She let out a soft laugh. "A professional habit. I like to be in control of all the variables." "Let me guess," I said, leaning forward. "Finding an assistant would be easy for you. You wouldn't need to go to these lengths just to hire me. You could find someone more suitable or someone who better fits a certain mold instead of me. But you didn't, which leads me to believe." I looked her straight in the eye. Isabella's expression shifted, a flicker of surprise in her amber eyes. "I'm guessing that you're one that got away. The person you want me to emulate has habits and a personality very similar to mine. Am I right?" I finished, leaning back with a triumphant look. Yes," she said, looking at me with a strange expression. "You're very perceptive. That is precisely why I sought you out. You're much smarter than I anticipated." "Of course. You know who you're dealing with," I said with a cheerful grin. "Yes, you're a real genius," she replied. I beamed, feeling a strange sense of unease I couldn't quite place. Something was off, but I couldn't put my finger on it. "As for compensation," she added, "it's 50% above the highest market rate. 50% up front, the remainder upon completion." I raised an eyebrow. "That's very generous." "You're worth it," she said simply. Damn, rich people really did have a way with words. I read through the contract one last time, saw no red flags, and signed my name with a flourish. "A pleasure doing business with you, Ms. Rossi," I said, extending my hand again. "Call me Isabella," she replied, shaking it. Then she said, "Move into my apartment tomorrow." "What?" I nearly choked on my coffee. "That fast? Living together tomorrow? Isn't this moving a little quickly?" "My social circle has already been informed that I have a serious boyfriend," she said calmly. "Moving in together sooner makes the story more believable." I rubbed my chin. "Fine. It's not like I have much to pack." She nodded and pulled a set of keys from her bag, sliding them across the table. "What's this?" "A Ducati Panigale V4, she said nonchalantly. "I heard you're a fan of motorcycles." My eyes widened as I snatched the keys. "Are you serious? I've been dreaming about this bike for years." A genuine smile touched her eyes as she watched my excitement. "We can take it for a spin this weekend." Damn, this boss really got me. There was a strange sense of familiarity about it all. As we were leaving the cafe, Isabella suddenly asked, "Are you free tonight?" "Yeah, why?" "I've booked a table at Galaxy's Edge. I hear their sci-fi themed holographic dining experience is quite impressive." She paused. "I thought you might like it." I was floored again. "You even know I like sci-fi themed restaurants?" She smiled faintly. "Just a guess." "Yeah, right." But I had to admit, her guess was spot on. Over dinner, I tested her with a few questions about classic sci-fi films. She answered every one perfectly, and could even debate the five-dimensional tesseract theory in Interstellar with me. "Isabella, don't tell me you're a sci-fi nerd too." I had to ask. She sipped her wine. "I'm just familiar with the topic." "Weird. So weird." She knew my taste in excruciating detail, but played it off as nothing. But for a Ducati and a fat paycheck, I decided to let it slide for now. Back at my apartment, I just finished packing when my phone started buzzing incessantly. 3 texts in a row from Eleanor. "Did you really take a new job? Who hired you? Is it another stand-in contract?" I raised an eyebrow, not planning to respond. Then another one came through. "I'll triple your salary. Come back." I scoffed and swiped the notification away. Stand-in rule number 3. When a former client offers you a raise, ignore it. Never go back. Tomorrow I was moving in with Isabella. Lying in bed, staring at the ceiling, I felt a strange sense of anticipation. Who was this new boss, really? Chapter 7. A perfect fit, new life, new place. Isabella's apartment was a penthouse in the heart of the city. It was spacious and bright, with a minimalist, high-end design and a wall of windows that offered a panoramic view of the skyline. I stood at the entrance with my suitcase and let out a low whistle. Not a bad view. Isabella took my suitcase and gestured naturally toward a room next to the master bedroom. "Your room is in there. I've already stocked the closet with some clothes for the season. See if they fit." I walked in and my jaw dropped. An entire wardrobe of casual wear workout clothes, even several sets of tank tops and shorts for boxing, all in my style and my size. "Isabella, you're a little too good at this whole preparation thing," I said, holding up a black jacket in amazement. She leaned against the doorframe, a smile on her lips. "I told you, I like to be in control. Weird, still weird, but a comfortable kind of weird." 3 days later, Isabella took me to a corporate gala. It was my first appearance as Isabella Rossi's boyfriend, and by all rights, I should have been nervous. But strangely, I was more relaxed than I'd ever been on a job, because this time I just had to be myself. At the event, Isabella took my arm as she introduced me to a few industry titans. "This is Leo Vance, my boyfriend. Not this is a stand-in for so-and-so. Not he's playing the part of my partner. Just a simple, my boyfriend." It felt surprisingly good. What was even more surprising was how unnatural our interactions were. They didn't feel like an act at all. When she handed me a glass of champagne, I took it and noticed it was a non-alcoholic version. She knew I was a lightweight. When I was chatting with someone, she would occasionally chime in with a comment that perfectly complimented my point, as if she already knew where my thoughts were headed. When I accidentally stepped on the hem of her gown, she just raised an eyebrow at me, and I reflexively blurted out, "Sorry, I'll buy you a more expensive pair of shoes to make up for it." She chuckled. "I'll add it to your tab." Our chemistry was uncanny, like we'd known each other for years. That weekend, Isabella made good on her promise, and we took the Ducati out. She'd changed into black biker leathers, her long hair tied back in a high ponytail. She looked fierce and beautiful. "You ride too?" I asked, surprised, as she expertly swung her leg over the bike. She tossed me a helmet, her eyes challenging. "What? You don't believe me?" "I believe you. I just didn't expect this side of you, Ms. Rossi. Everyone has a biker punk phase when they're young. I just grew out of it. So why are you riding now? Aren't you worried about a noise complaint?" She laughed and revved the engine. "Just reliving my youth for a moment. Once I'm done, I'll toss it aside. I have no intention of being a delinquent forever. Damn, must be nice to be rich. Hold on tight. I'm not responsible if you fall off." I wrapped my arms around her waist, and the bike shot forward. The wind roared in my ears as the city blurred past us. Isabella rode with a fast, steady confidence. As she leaned into a turn, I instinctively tightened my grip. Her back was pressed firmly against my chest, and I could feel the warmth of her body through her leathers. Damn, my heart was beating a little too fast. After the ride, Isabella and I were laughing and talking as we walked into the lobby of her apartment building, but a cold voice stopped us in our tracks. "Now, I can't believe you've stooped to being some biker punk." I turned. Eleanor was standing a few feet away, her face a thunderous mask. She was dressed in a sharp business suit, her heels clicking angrily on the marble floor as she closed the distance. Her eyes darted between me and Isabella before landing on me with a piercing glare. "So, your new client is Isabella Rossi?" she sneered. "What a coincidence." I shrugged. "Just business." Eleanor's eyes grew colder. "How much is she paying you?" "I'll double it." Isabella let out a soft laugh and draped an arm over my shoulder, her voice lazy. "Ms. Shaw, there's a certain etiquette to poaching talent, isn't there? First come, first served." Eleanor's gaze dropped to Isabella's hand on my shoulder, her expression hardening. "Leo, we need to talk." "About what?" I raised an eyebrow. "Alone," she said through gritted teeth. Isabella glanced at me. I gave her a slight shake of my head, then turned back to Eleanor. "Miss Shaw, our contract is over. There's nothing to talk about." Eleanor took a deep breath, her tone suddenly softening. "It's not about the money. I need you." I was taken aback. I never expected to hear those words from her. Isabella smiled faintly from beside me. "Miss Shaw, it's highly inappropriate for you to be harassing my boyfriend like this." Eleanor's head snapped toward her. "Boyfriend? Do you really think he likes you? He's just doing a job." Isabella remained unruffled. She reached up and adjusted my collar, her voice intimate. "Leo, why don't you tell Miss Shaw what we are?" I looked at her face, so close to mine, and my heart hammered in my chest. On some crazy impulse, I heard myself say, "We're dating." The color drained from Eleanor's face. Isabella smiled, satisfied, and took my hand. "Let's go home." Eleanor stood frozen, her voice trembling slightly. "Leo, you're going to regret this." I didn't look back, just gave a little wave over my shoulder. "Miss Shaw, I wish you and Julian all the best. Stand-in rule number 4. When a former client gets clingy, shut it down." No hesitation. Back in the apartment, Isabella poured me a glass of water. "Eleanor is more persistent than I thought," she said lightly. I took the glass, hesitated, then finally asked the question that had been bugging me for days. "Isabella, how do you know so much about me?" She paused and met my gaze. "What do you think? I've looked you up. There's no record of us ever meeting before," I said, frowning. "But you know everything, right down how I like my eggs." She chuckled softly and stepped closer, tapping a finger lightly against my chest. "Maybe. We knew each other in a past life." My heart skipped a beat again. This woman was dangerous. Chapter 8. Proximity and Investigation. On the 7th day of living at Isabella's, I woke up late. I shuffled into the kitchen, rubbing my eyes, and found her already making breakfast: fried eggs, bacon, toast, and a cup of coffee. I stared at the mug and raised an eyebrow. "How did you know I like my coffee black?" Isabella was slicing fruit, not even looking up. "A guess. And this." I pointed to the perfectly cooked sunny-side-up egg on my plate. "Also a guess." I narrowed my eyes. "Isabella, your guesses are a little too accurate, don't you think?" She finally looked up, a small smile playing on her lips. "Maybe I'm just lucky." "Yeah, right. But I had to admit, the breakfast was perfect." "You're not working today?" I asked around a bite of toast. "I have a meeting this afternoon," she said, handing me a napkin. "I can spend the morning with you." "With me? The boxing gym. Did you forget?" She pointed to the calendar on the wall. "It's Wednesday." I blinked, suddenly remembering. The contract mentioned my weekly gym sessions, but I never imagined she'd offer to come with me. "Ms. Rossi, your client's services are top-notch," I laughed. "The boss herself is going to be my sparring partner?" She wiped her hands, her tone nonchalant. "I was free anyway." "Yeah, sure you were." At the gym, I changed into my workout gear. As I was warming up, I saw Isabella emerge from the locker room in a sports bra and leggings, already wrapping her hands. "You're actually going to fight?" I asked, amazed. She flexed her wrists. "What, scared I'll beat you?" "Not scared." I rubbed my nose. "Just didn't have you pegged as a fighter." 10 minutes later, I regretted everything. Isabella's boxing skills were terrifyingly good. Her jabs were fast and precise. Her footwork was fluid, and even on defense, I still took a few solid hits. "Isabella, are you sure you're not a professional fighter?" I asked, gasping for air. She laughed lightly. I trained in college. Which one? I asked instinctively. Her movements faltered for a fraction of a second. Then she sent a right hook flying toward me. Focus. There was again, dodging the question. After a session, I collapsed onto a bench, chugging water. Isabella handed me a towel, then reached out and gently wiped the sweat from my forehead. Her fingertips were cool against my skin, and my heart skipped a beat. Not bad, she said softly, her face so close I could smell the faint scent of her perfume. My throat felt dry. I was about to say something when her phone rang. She glanced at the caller ID, and her expression shifted. I have to take this. She walked to a corner, her voice low, but I still caught a few words. Did you find the files? Was the university crest confirmed? Don't let Eleanor find out. A university crest? Eleanor? I narrowed my eyes. I had a feeling Isabella's secrets ran much deeper than I'd thought. Meanwhile, in Eleanor Shaw's office, Caroline placed a file on the desk. Miss Shaw, we found something. Eleanor opened it, her brow furrowing. Isabella Rossi and Leo Vance. They knew each other. It's unclear, Caroline said, shaking her head. But Ms. Rossi did attend Boston University for a time. The same university as Leo, though they were in different years. Eleanor's fingers tapped on the desk. Keep digging. I want to know everything about her social circle in college. Caroline hesitated. There's one more thing. Mr. Hayes called. He was asking if you were free tonight. Tell him I'm busy. Eleanor cut her off coldly. After Caroline left, Eleanor opened a small box in her drawer. Inside was a tarnished university crest, the only thing her savior had left behind. She stared at it, murmuring to herself. If it wasn't Julian, then who was it? That night, Isabella drank, which was unusual for her. She was clearly a lightweight. After one glass of red wine, her eyes were hazy. When we got home, she was leaning heavily on me, her breath warm against my neck. Leo, she whispered my name. Yeah. Do you remember? In college. Her voice trailed off. My heart pounded. What about college? She looked up, her amber eyes glistening with unshed tears. Never mind. You probably don't remember. Before I could press her, she reached up and cupped my face in her hands, her expression deadly serious. But this time, I'm not letting you get away again. What was happening? Before I could process it, her forehead dropped to my shoulder and her breathing evened out. She was asleep. I let out a breath, half frustrated, half amused, and carried her to her bedroom. As I was tucking her in, I noticed a small, ornate box on her desk. Curiosity got the better of me. I opened it. Inside, with a university crest, identical to the one I'd lost years ago. What the hell was going on? It was 3 a.m, but the lights in Eleanor Shaw's office were still burning. Spread before her were yellow documents, hospital records, clippings from student newspaper, even grainy security footage from over a decade ago. Her finger was pressed so hard on one of the photos that her knuckle was white. In the picture, a young man, his back to the camera, was pulling a soaked girl from a lake. The girl's face was obscured by her wet hair, but the bracelet on her wrist was unmistakable. It was the same one Eleanor still wore. And a young man's profile. It was Leo. Impossible. Eleanor's voice trembled. She snatched another photo, the one she had cherished for years as proof that Julian was her savior. But looking at it now, all she could see was the back of a figure. The face was completely hidden. How could this be? Her hand shook as she dialed a number. Caroline, I need all of Julian Hayes' travel record from that year. Now, 30 minutes later, the truth was laid bare. Julian Hayes hadn't even been in the state that day. The person who saved her was Leo, and she had been wrong for an entire decade. Eleanor collapsed into her chair as a flood of memories washed over her. Leo, always remembering to put precisely 1 packet of sugar in her coffee. Leo, quietly waiting outside her door when she had a nightmare. Leo, making her a bowl of ginger soup when her stomach hurt. He remembered every little detail, while she hadn't even remembered him. The next morning, Eleanor drove straight to Isabella's building. Her face was ashen, her eyes shadowed with exhaustion. When she saw me leaving the lobby, she practically lunged at me. Leo, she cried, grabbing my arm. I found out. You were the one who saved me. It was you, wasn't it? I stared at her, confused. Saved her? Miss Shaw, you need to calm down. How can I be calm? Tears streamed down her face. The person I've been looking for 10 years was you. And I made you a stand-in. Her voice broke. I'm so sorry. I really didn't know. I was silent for a moment as a vague memory from college surfaced. A girl in the water. Had that been her? I gently pulled my arm away. Miss Shaw, even if that's true, it was a long time ago. It doesn't matter anymore. No. She shook her head frantically. We can start over. Not as a stand-in, not as an assistant. I'll give you any position you want at the company, stock options, a house, a car, anything. Please, just come back. She was a gambler who had lost everything, making one last, desperate bet. Looking at this once proud woman, I felt a pang of pity. Eleanor, I said, using her first name for the first time. Even if I did save you back then, so what? She froze. I took the stand-in job for the money, not to win your affection, I said calmly. The day that contract ended, our relationship was over. Her lips trembled. Then why? Why were you so good to me for 3 years? I smiled, and it was a cold, professional thing. Because it was my job. The truth, in its simplest form, was also the cruelest. Eleanor sank to the ground. The woman who had always held her head so high was now crouched on the concrete, her head in her hands. Please, she sobbed, grabbing at my pants leg. I can give you more than Isabella can. I can love you. I took a step back, my expression calm. Eleanor, don't do this. Then what should I do? She screamed, her voice raw with grief. Don't I even get a chance to make it up to you? There's nothing to make up for, I sighed. We had a business arrangement. That's all. I turned to leave, but her voice, sharp and bitter, stopped me. What about Isabella? Isn't she just hiring you to be a stand-in too? I paused at the curb. I looked back over my shoulder, and a genuine, gentle smile touched my lips, a smile Eleanor had never seen. No, she hired me to be Leo Vance. Because the real thing never needs a replacement. Chapter 10. I was my own stand-in. That night, I knocked on Isabella's bedroom door. She had just showered, her hair still damp. She saw the look on my face and paused. What's wrong? I held up the university crest. It's time you told me the truth. Isabella's gaze flickered, but she nodded. Come in. She opened a safe and took out a photograph. It was from our college campus. A younger me was smiling, handing a book to a girl with glasses and braces. Is this you? I asked, stunned. I couldn't connect the awkward girl in the photo with the radiant woman standing before me. I had braces and got laser eye surgery my freshman year, Isabella said with a wry smile. Of course you don't recognize me. She stroked the photo. That year, some bullies were harassing me. You stepped in and chased them off. I wanted to thank you, but then I heard you dropped out. I spent 8 years looking for you, until I saw your picture in a business magazine, standing next to Eleanor Shaw. My head was spinning. The scattered fragments of memory were finally clicking into place. The girl calling for help by the lake. No, wait, that was Eleanor. The girl cornered by punks in an alley behind campus. My backpack getting torn in the scuffle, and the university crest I'd given to a stranger. That had all been Isabella? So, my voice was hoarse. You hire me to... Isabella looked up, tears finally spilling from her eyes. To tell you that someone remembered the real Leo Vance. Not a stand-in for someone else. Just him. My face flushed with embarrassment as I remembered my brilliant deduction when we first met. Wait a minute, I said. When I made that whole speech about your one that got away, you told me I was smart. Were you laughing at me that entire time? She called me a genius. My reputation was ruined. I felt like such an idiot. Not at all, she said, trying and failing to suppress a smile. Oh, this was mortifying. So, do I still need to keep playing myself, Ms. Rossi? I asked after a long pause. Now that you know, I guess not. She found the contract and, with a sad smile, prepared to tear it up. I suddenly placed my hand over hers, stopping her. What were you thinking? Why didn't you just tell me? Did you think hiring me was some kind of game? Who wanted to hire you as a stand-in? She retorted. When I first found you, you were with Eleanor. I thought you were in love with her. I frowned. It was only later that I realized it was just a job. But you were so damn loyal. You wouldn't even give another woman the time of day. I couldn't get in touch with you. So, my only option was to go through an agent and post a job for a stand-in. It was the only way to get your attention. You mean to tell me I've been my own stand-in this whole time? I asked. The absurdity of it was staggering. Well, you don't have to be a stand-in. You could. Just be yourself, Isabella said softly. So, I'm your one that got away? I asked. What a mess. She nodded. Have you ever heard the saying? I asked. What saying? She asked, confused. That the idealized memory of a person is so powerful, not even the person themselves can live up to it. I paused. I'm not that great. Once you get to know me, once the halo fades, you'll realize I'm not. Stop, she said, placing a finger on my lips. I know. Outside, the moonlight was bright, and for a moment, it felt like we were back in college again. Chapter 11. The final gamble. Eleanor stood outside the Rossi Global Tower, clutching a document. It was her final hand to play, a transfer agreement for 5% of Shaw Industries. If Leo agreed to come back to her, the shares would be his. It was enough to set him up for life. The elevator took her to the top floor. She took a deep breath and pushed open the door to Isabella's office. Then she froze. Leo was sitting in Isabella's executive chair. Isabella herself was curled up in his lap, the two of them looking over a document together, their posture radiating an easy intimacy. Leo said something, and Isabella laughed, playfully pinching his cheek. It was a version of Leo that Eleanor had never seen, relaxed, happy, and completely at ease. Ms. Shaw. Isabella was the first to notice her. Her smile faded slightly. Can we help you? Eleanor forced herself to remain calm. I'm here for Leo. I looked up, my expression neutral. Eleanor, I already told you. This is for you, she said, cutting me off and slapping the file on the desk. If you come back. I glanced at the document, my brow furrowing in disbelief. Eleanor, are you insane? I've never been more clear-headed, she said, her eyes fixed on me. You deserve this. After all, I owe you my life. Silence descended on the office. Isabella suddenly laughed. She uncurled herself from my lap, picked up the file, and flipped through it. A very generous offer, Miss Shaw. She turned to me and winked. What do you say, honey? Time to trade up. I pulled her back into my lap and kissed her soundly on the lips. Not a chance. The benefits here are too good. The color drained from Eleanor's face. Isabella waved the file before tucking it back into Eleanor's hand. Miss Shaw, some things can't be bought. Eleanor's hand trembled. She looked at me, her voice barely a whisper. Are you really? Not giving me a single chance? I sighed, stood up, and walked over to her. Eleanor, I said softly, your life is about more than just chasing ghosts. You have so much ahead of you. It's time to let go of the past. I then placed the Patek Philippe she had given me back in her hand. It's time this watch went to the right person. I walked away. Eleanor stared down at the watch in her palm, a dawning, heartbreaking realization in her eyes. The initials engraved on the back weren't for Julian. They were never for Julian. All this time, she had been obsessed with a phantom, a story she had told herself, while the real person was right in front of her. And in that one moment of misguided obsession, she had lost him forever. 3 months later, on the Boston University campus, Isabella and I walked hand in hand down a path by the river. The autumn sun was warm on our skin. We wandered through the old back alleys, revisiting familiar spots. Right here, Isabella said, pointing down an alleyway. A few punks cornered me. You showed up and saved me. My school crest got torn off my backpack in the fight. I raised an eyebrow. No wonder this place always felt familiar. Isabella pulled a small velvet box from her purse, a mischievous glint in her eye. So, boss, interested in renewing your contract. Inside the box was a ring. I stared at it for a second, then dropped to one knee and pulled another velvet box from my own pocket. Funny you should ask. I brought one too. Isabella's eyes widened. When did you? Last week, I grinned. I was going to give it to you at dinner tonight. 2 rings, sparkling in the sunlight. Isabella's eyes filled with tears. Leo, are you sure? I lied to you, I silenced her with a kiss. Isabella, I whispered against her forehead. You know, in all my years as a stand-in, you're the only one who ever hired me to be myself. 1 year later, the front page of the business section. Rossi Global CEO, Isabella Rossi weds relationship consultant Leo Vance consultant. I like the sound of that. I'd managed to turn my unique experience into a pretty successful career. The accompanying photo showed me in a white tuxedo and Isabella in a wedding gown, laughing at each other, as we sat on a Ducati. And tucked away in a small corner of the same page, another story was printed. Shaw Industries chairwoman Eleanor Shaw steps down as CEO to develop overseas markets. The photo was of Eleanor, alone, boarding a private jet. On her wrist, there was nothing at all,